You don't trust vendors. And if you look at an agency as a vendor, you're going to think they're trying to cut corners.
So the relationship has to begin with saying that, hey, listen, this has to be at least like a 5, 6, 7 year relationship.
I think that the agency that has worked with you for the first 2 years, 3 years, whatever, building your brand should be the agency that takes you forward.
Now, if let's say PR is not strategically very important today for you, don't go with an agency partner who started off as a PR agency and
then, got it. If you go to a larger agency, on paper, they're going to say, we have 30 people working for this brand.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Well, not everybody who's building a consumer brand is 25 years old. Welcome to This Living Room. This is a podcast which is hosted, presented, produced, shot by Bo and I.
Shot in this living room, which is why it's called This Living Room.
We largely talk about things around advertising and marketing, but we are also not sure whether this is all that we are going to talk about. But for now, it seems to be going down that path. And this episode is about
It's about if and when you should fire your agency. Also, before we move,
I dropped something. Car keys.
this podcast has not been sponsored by Corona.
Nobody is sponsoring anything.
Which is why I said it's not been sponsored by Corona.
No, I'm wondering why people are not sponsoring anything. We should already have a line of brands.
Ideally, since it is a marketing podcast, what better platform to market your brand in?
My dear friends in the marketing fraternity, there are so many of you. Please sponsor something.
Okay, so let's start. When should you fire your agency? And when should you not? This is actually, come to think of it, this is actually very detrimental to what you and me do as a profession.
So I was just about to give the short answer before we get into the podcast. If the agency is either the voice company or 367, the answer is never. On that note, when should you fire your agency?
Can I break it down into a metaphor? Because I think I'm really good at metaphors more than anything else.
Yeah.
Look, I think everything in life can be done in a metaphorical way.
Yeah.
To a relationship. Okay. So, for example, when two people start working together, founder, co-founder, whatever, that's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a working relationship, but it's a relationship. I think the same rules sort of apply, right? I'll tell you why I'm saying that. When you think of an agency and when you think of a client, at some point in a relationship as well, someone keeps growing and the other person stops growing.
Yeah.
Right? In every relationship. And it's bound to happen, which is where there's friction, right? And not to be sexist, but in most cases, it's the men who stop growing and the women who keep growing.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So,
that has been my experience as well.
Yeah, mine as well. But in that format, I think that when someone stops growing, either you have a very hard conversation with that person and say, listen, I can't be doing all of this in the relationship. You have to pull your own weight.
Yeah.
Right? And if you can't pull your weight, then I guess it's time to say, okay, see you. It was great while it lasted.
Yeah. Since we are on the relationship metaphor, it's not about one hard conversation, right?
Sure.
See, you expectation setting has to be right on both ends, right? You can't be working with an agency for a year and not give continuous feedback, and feedback both good and bad, right? And then one fine day decide to say that this is not working out.
But this feedback should come from both the agency and the client as well, right?
Yes, it's a two-way thing.
Yeah,
both ways, absolutely. But coming back to the question, so one thing that you're saying is if the growth trajectories or the growth paths or
vision or whatever, I mean,
growth vision, growth path vision are divergent, it's a good time to have a very serious conversation, and if that convergence is not found, then you decide to part ways. That's one.
Yeah.
Right. I think Another good reason could be that if they do shit work.
Yeah.
Now, while I'm saying that, what does shit work mean?
What does shit work mean? I think shit work is of two kinds. One is sometimes you just hit a roadblock, right? If you're working on the same, and it's happened to every creative person. I know it's happened to me.
Yeah.
If you're working on the same brand day in and day out for many, many months, you hit a roadblock, right?
Yeah.
Unless you know of ways to get out of that roadblock, you're essentially going to come up with shit ideas. Right? So
Yeah.
it's normal, but it happens.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that it happens.
Yeah.
That's one kind of shit work. The other kind of shit work is work that you think is okay, right? And theoretically it could be fine, right? There are no red flags about the work per se.
Yeah.
It's just that the work doesn't convert. Right? Now there could be many measurements of that conversion.
Yeah.
It could be the fault of the brand brief as well. I'm not saying whose fault it is right now, but for whatever reason, that work that the agency is creating is not doing justice to what the business or marketing objectives are for that brand.
Yeah.
These are the two kinds of shit work I think that exist.
There's a third kind of shit work as well, right? In my head, it's lazy, sloppy work. And so lazy, sloppy work could just mean that the team which is deployed
Not paying enough attention.
not paying enough attention, not being on top of things, right? And that could also be timeline adherence. That could also be seriousness to, like in our case, we are responsible for business delivery, right? As a number delivery on the performance marketing side of our agency. Not taking accountability, right? It's okay that the numbers happen, don't happen, right? As in that kind of accountability. While our business is very tricky, right? As in, there's a lot of misconception that you get a good performance marketing agency and all your problems are solved, which is not the case.
It's not at all the case, yeah.
But that accountability is important, right? While the number,
You can't just throw your hands up in the air and say, look, this is not on me.
yeah, or not bother enough, right? If the agency is not bothered enough, and I don't want to use words like urgency, because urgency then kind of goes into the zone that agency should be working till 12 o'clock every night and 24/7 every night. But just a sense of timeliness, commitment, just some drive towards the business objectives. I think if those things are also a mismatch, I think that's also a good time to have a very serious conversation with your agency.
But I mean, talking about conversations, I think that one of the reasons that I've seen personally myself is that this whole firing thing that happens mainly because of this misalignment in communication. I think if the communication was better between two people or two agents or two partners, I think you wouldn't reach that stage. I mean, if your work is shitty, you will reach that stage no matter what, right? But a lot of conversations that should happen don't, and I think that's also because of a lot of legacy that is there in the industry. I think companies function in a specific formatted way, right? Even today, right? You'll have, like, I work with some wonderful people, and there are people that I work with, and we get on weekly calls and we just jam and we discuss, right? And there are also clients that I work with where it's like a 6 month, in 6 months we'll have one call and they say, okay, you went wrong in this, right?
Yeah.
The first kind of conversation is a great kind of conversation because it's a regular conversation. Right? Now, it's not that fuck ups aren't pointed out in those conversations as well, but I would say it's a more collaborative way of working rather than a client and agency kind of dynamic.
But so before I come to the where I think the real issue is, there is also a situation where there is a major deficit in trust. Okay, the preconceived notion between the agency and the brand is of trust deficit, right? That agency will try to cut corners, not give us what we want, right? So the brand team is coming from this space of trust deficit. So that alignment right up front, right? And number one, just stating this on the table, right? As in saying that, hey, listen, we are here to do what is best for the brand. And I think that onus, given the dynamic today, rests with the agency, where you demonstrate a few things where that you take the first step towards building trust, right?
Yeah.
And it's both ways.
Yeah.
Where the brand also has to kind of give you the freedom to do something, right? Not micromanage you, give you the freedom to do something. But establishing that trust early on, I think that bridges a lot of
I agree.
things.
Yeah.
I think that,
But see, this trust also goes back into the way agencies have marketed. Okay, not marketed themselves. Agencies have never marketed themselves, but them being essentially okay as being seen as vendors. Now, you don't trust vendors, and if you look at an agency as a vendor, you're going to think they're trying to cut corners, right? They're trying to make a quick.
yeah.
I've worked with both kinds of people, surprisingly,
Yeah.
right? And the younger people that I work with now,
Yeah.
they don't look at the voice company as a vendor at all. They look at the voice company as, hey, here's a team of people who know what they're doing. We know what they're doing. We know what we are doing. Let's do something great together.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so before that, we should also, and we should have done this right in the beginning. Why are we qualified to have this conversation about agencies and brands is because of the following reasons. I have had the unique privilege of working both on the client side, where I was involved with a large mainline brand, and my agency partners at that time were JWT and Mindshare. Mindshare on the media buying side,
Yeah.
JWT was my creative partner. On the digital side, it was Glitch, which got later acquired by PhD. So PhD and Glitch both, right? So I've had that experience, and right now since I run the agency, so this is a unique kind of point of view where
you have a point of view
on both sides.
Both sides.
And while I've worked with network agencies in the past, I'm trying to run an independent agency.
Yeah.
So it's a good mix there.
Yeah.
And
I don't have the privilege
of the client side.
of the client side,
Yeah.
but I've been with different kinds of agencies, different sizes of agencies. I've been with massive agency networks. I've worked within those networks. I've also been part of boutique agencies, which have later been acquired. Now, of course, I'm running my own agency, which is like a small hole in the wall agency. But for whatever it is, it's an agency, right? So there's a breadth of the kind of experiences that I think both you and me have.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think Mad Men did to the larger perception of agencies? Was it helpful, or while it was a very well made, interesting,
It was a very problematic show on many levels.
yeah,
But
and I'm forgetting, I don't want to go down the path of how it misogyny, and I don't want to go down that path, right? I'm saying purely as an agency and a brand, right? As in, if let's say you had a certain worldview, right? And I'll paint this picture for you. Let's say you are a young brand manager who's just started interacting with your agency partners, right? And typically, like in an FMCG company, that will start happening after 3.5 years of your career. And you start watching Mad Men. What will it do?
it's perception building.
Yeah,
Right? And it's not the right perception at all. But funnily enough, if I were to say that this perception is far removed from reality, that's not true. There are people, there are many kind of people still in advertising, but you'll find the old people like that. You're not going to find the young folk who are mad many, right? I think what Mad Men did for brand managers is that they somehow started looking at agencies as eccentric madhouses, right? Where we were drinking in office and smoking up in office. That was almost never the case. That never used to happen. So I did have a bottle of alcohol in my drawer. And there were a lot of...
Was it like a secret bottle stashed somewhere, or were people aware and you could pull it out in the evening and have a couple of drinks?
My team was aware. I mean, my boss was aware.
But was it frowned upon?
Was it?
Frowned upon? Or people didn't give a fuck?
People didn't give a fuck. I mean, it's not like we were hammered.
Yeah, and not in the middle of the day.
I would come into office at about 8:30, right?
Yeah.
I would work till about, let's say, 9 o'clock, and then pitch work used to start,
Yeah.
right? So you needed to take the edge off a little bit. I at least needed to take the edge off a little bit. I'm drinking beer right now to take the edge off my long day, right? So you would drink a little bit, and if there were people around, you'd pass it around or whatever. But that is very, very different from Donald Draper, going into his room, having a scotch, smoking a cigarette on all parts of the day.
Yeah.
It's very different. It's not the same at all.
Yeah. So, like if I
And like if you lie down very quietly for about 3 hours, you're going to immediately magically come up with an idea.
yeah,
It doesn't work like
doesn't
that.
work like that.
It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that.
So that perception was a terrible perception, which I think created a lot of. I mean, they started looking at advertising agencies differently.
Yeah.
But also, I feel that there was a bit of good rub off as well, because suddenly we weren't just sort of hanging around doing nothing. We were working. We were coming up with good stuff. Perception wise,
Yeah.
you will come up with something.
I'll tell you what, right? As in, if I roll back and go back to just like my understanding of what went inside a agency office, right? It was like this mythical black box where a brief.
So interesting. You started off as a client and then you moved to an agency, right?
Yeah.
So when you were a client,
That's what I'm telling you.
what was your perception versus how did that break?
That's what I'm telling you. So it essentially kind of felt like I'm going to throw a brief, right? It is going to go. There will be a couple of meetings to kind of align on the brief, and then there will be silence for a
So was this reality or was this perception?
No, this was reality.
Okay, this
right?
was reality.
And so I'll tell you, right? There was silence for a while, and then one find the ideas would emerge, right? So in my head, I was like, okay, I'm dumping shit into like this mythical box, globe, whatever you want to call it, and then creative output is coming out. Beyond that, right? I don't know what is happening in
What the process has been.
I don't know, because and for me, it's a little bit of intrigue as well, right? I think what is going on? How will we go from here
to there.
to there? Yeah,
In like 2 weeks or
yeah. So the other conversation is whether there is where I want you to be.
Yeah, correct.
But how did this happen?
Yeah,
right? So that's what used to be the perception of the creative agency, right? The media agency felt more like my office, right? Because weekly dashboards would come, right?
Yeah.
When campaigns were on,
Yeah.
etc.
It's a numbers game.
It was a numbers game. It was more analysis, analytical, weekly review during campaign period,
Yeah.
pre-campaign, post-campaign eval, all of that, right? Annual planning, budgets. So it just felt more closer to home. The creative agency would kind of feel a little, okay, something is happening. I don't know what.
It just occurred to me that we've moved away from what we started off talking about.
Yeah.
And this happens, by the way. This happens. This is the theme of the podcast. We start talking about something and then we'll digress into something else.
Okay, so just rolling back to the conversation, right? So when you should sack your agency is something that we answered, right? These three areas, right? A better question to ask is, how do you start working with agencies where the need to sack doesn't come? Okay, and I'll tell you,
Predict that. The probability, you can dial up the probability.
you can dial up the probability. As in, people change, shit changes, a lot of things happen in life which we can't predict. But at least, how do you make better informed choices, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you the value of a long-lasting relationship, right? Now, this might not be true for a long period of time in founder-driven agencies, because the founder will always have context to the brand. Okay, as the brand. So, let's say till you hit like, let's say 200 crores, right? And if it's a marketing first founder, and which is mostly the case, and if it's a team which has 2-3 founders, one of them will be marketing first, right? That founder will be involved in all large marketing decisions till that journey.
Yeah.
After a certain stage, decisions will be taken which the founder will be informed of later, right? In mainline brands, a brand manager's life on a brand is 2 to 3 years, right? A category head's life is 3 to 4 years. Like a CMO changes every 3, 4, 5 years, right? A long-standing relationship with the agency means continuity on brand, right? So the brand manager induction, there's an induction which your manager does. There's also an induction which your agency partner does, right? And there's a lot of richness to that induction as well, because the agency in some ways has maintained that continuity, right? They've kind of ensured that either from servicing or planning or creative, there is that mix of people who've been working with the brand, while they might have been like, let's say, a junior writer at some level, they've come back again as creative account head or something like that. Right? There's some continuity on brand which is maintained, which means that my induction becomes that much more robust, right? So that value is important, right? So the historical learning, etc., right? So the parallel to that, right, in our world is that so founders come with two schools of thought, right? Uh, there are founders who will come and say that if you work in a particular category, so let's say I'm working with a protein brand and I'm doing performance marketing for a protein brand. Some protein brand founders will say that if you are working with my brand, which is in the same category, direct competition or not, I don't want to work with you. My take, and there are a lot of founders which are okay with this, right? And which kind of are on my school of thought is basically that if I am working with 3-4 brands within the same category, I bring in learning which will be very difficult to get from somebody who has no experience in the category, right? Now, obviously, data integrity has to be maintained, right? We will deploy different teams, so the same person will not be on the team, right? Data will be siloed, protected, so that there is no data leakage, etc. All those hygiene factors will be considered, but at the agency level, right? Today we are still like a 40-member team, and the founders are involved in most of the activities around most of the brands, right? Not operationally, but at least strategically we are still involved. Our learning is built around the category, right? There are things which we will just instantly know, which will take a lot of trial and error for the brand to learn, right? So this continuity and learning, I think, is important. So the relationship has to begin with saying that, hey, listen, this has to be at least like a 5, 6, 7 year relationship, right? And I'm talking early stage, younger brand, etc. Now,
but are you talking? I'm just curious. Are you talking in terms of a advertising agency, performance marketing agency? Because what you said right now, saying that the relationship has to begin with a with an agreement, verbal agreement that this relationship should go on for the next 5, 6 years. I've almost seen that's never the case.
No, I'm saying intent, not verbal agreement, but I'm saying if ideally, if I'm the brand owner, right? If I'm a founder of a brand, it's a disservice to me if I have to look for new agency, right? I've built a learning curve with one team. Now, for whatever reason, I have to move to another team. And by the way, this is true on creative and performance all across, right? Learning curve has got built. Now, I say that, hey, I don't want to work with this person anymore. Goes away.
Learning curve starts again.
Yeah. So you're not incrementally increasing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's more intent, right? You should be able to say that, okay, today if my brand is, let's say, at a 20 crore ARR, do I see this agency partner to be a good fit for me when we will be 200 crores? Do they have that kind of capability?
Do brand managers actually think of that? I'm not talking about legacy brands. Yeah, I'm talking about new brands.
That unfortunately they don't. But if you had to change the lens that way, right? Is this fitment good enough?
I think what the reality is, and again talking from experience, right? I think what the reality is that when, let's say there's a startup who's raised seed, right? It's a factor of money you can spend. Your decision is made more often than not with the money that you can spend.
Correct.
Right? Now, let's say Licious, right? Licious has worked with smaller agencies when Licious was operating at a smaller scale, right? And then when Licious raised a massive round of funding, they picked up the phone on Ogilvy and said, look, I want you to work on my business. Now, was Ogilvy the right partner for that job? No idea. I'm no one to say if they were or weren't. But I'm saying Licious could take that decision based on the bank that they had, right?
Yeah.
Now, for example, a company, let's say, has raised Series A, right? Which means that typically at a retainer level, you could possibly spend between maybe 5 to 10 lakhs, let's say.
Across your agency partners.
Yeah.
Marketing only, sales marketing.
Sales and marketing. I'm not talking about media, right? Now, you would spend that amount of money in a month. Now, you would say, okay, which are the agencies that would charge this kind of money? So, let's say you come up with whatever, 5, 6 agencies, right? And then the fitment starts from there. I don't think it's a conversation where you look at all the agencies and you think that, okay, which agency can partner up with me for the next 5, 6 years? Because you're going to grow, right? As soon as you grow, your buying power increases. When your buying power increases, You say, hey, listen, I want to level up now.
Level.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I think that the agency that has worked with you for the first 2 years, 3 years, whatever, building your brand should be the agency that takes you forward, and the agency just needs to, if you're growing, the agency just needs to get more manpower, get more talent.
Yeah.
To grow with you.
Yeah.
If the agency cannot, then it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. So this is an interesting point, right? As in, I think leveling up is natural human tendency, right? And you see that happening across, right? As in, you drive a car,
Yeah.
you start making more money, you want to level up to another car, whatever, house, car, everything is the same, right? The same thing happens, I think, with brands and founding teams as well, because when they reach a certain scale, and on top of that they've raised a certain amount of money, there is also this peer set, right? Saying that, hey, my competition, and for a lot of these brands, their competition is a mainline brand, right? So if you are anywhere in the FMCG kind of category, right, you are a new skincare brand, you are this, that, you hear that a network
like Bombay Shaving Company, Gillette.
Yeah, so Gillette, I don't know who's the agency for Gillette, but it will be one of McCann, Ogilvy, FCB, JWT, one of these, right? You say that they have them and we have a smaller boutique independent agency. Let's get one of them so that we are at the level playing field, right? I mean, I can understand that mindset, but again, the same problem exists, right? Now the real question, right? And again, let's put on the founder's lens, right? Let's say that I'm doing what is best for my business, right? Is like what you were saying. You know your growth trajectory, right? You know that, okay, on paper, we have said that we are going to be 50 crores this year, we are going to be 200 crores next year, right? For whatever that number is. And then third year, we are going to go to 500 crores, right? If that is a conversation, you also know largely your funding cycle. You know, I've raised $1 million. I'm already planning to raise 5 million after 9 months. And then I'll need potentially another 10 million, right? Whatever, if that is your pipeline. Now, when that fund comes in, could happen as per your timeline, could be 6 months aage, 6 months piche, right? Whatever. But you know that. If that is a conversation with your agency partners who started working with you, saying that, hey, listen, we are going to grow faster, we are going to become bigger, we'll have more money to spend on marketing, which means that the activities that we are doing right now will become different.
Potentially bigger. Yeah.
So number one, you tell us what we should do. And number two, is that the right thing for the business or the brand, right? And then whether you can deliver it. Right? If the agency partner is fair and good, the agency partner will do a real evaluation, right? Like, for example, if today a brand who I work with comes and says that, hey, listen, we want to do TV tomorrow, right? TV. Today, while I have been exposed on the client side of viewing, evaluating, running a TV plan of about 50, 60, 70 crores a year, right? I've never done planning. I've never bought inventory on TV. Nobody in my team has that capability, right? For me to say that,
how difficult would it be for you to get someone who understands that?
I can. But then that's an honest conversation between the brand and me, saying that, hey, we understand how this works because we've been on the receiving end of TV plans, right? And we've been reasonably good at media planning. And between Sumit, Vishay and I, all three of us, we've all seen a very different variety of media plans done by many media agencies, right? Because you're not working with the same media agency. So there's experience on how to evaluate the plan. By the way, that's very valuable for a founder who's getting media plans for the first time, right? Because he doesn't know how to evaluate, he doesn't know what the right media plan is. If that works for the brand, saying that I'm going to get resourcing and I'm going to be able to solve this for you, and here is my value add, versus going to an agency which classically already has this, the choice is yours, right? So those are conversations that you can have and then take those kind of calls.
Let's talk about punching up.
So exactly. Now, my thesis on this is that rosters of agencies matter. Okay, because that's a very quick evaluation of, it's just a very quick evaluation of whether we should be working with these people or not, right?
What are the rosters of agencies?
So badges that you carry, brands that you work with in the past, right? Your client base matters.
Your clients, basically.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times in our case, for example, demonstration of quality of work is not as easy, right? Now, I cannot communicate with a 1 minute film how good my work is, because my work, a large part of my work is media planning and media delivery, right? How do I tell you how good it is? I can't be telling you numbers of brands, right? That, oh, we got this brand when they were doing 50 lakhs a month, now they're doing 2 crores.
I'm asking because I don't know. Why can't you give numbers?
Yeah, because that number is someone's P&L, right? It's someone else's revenue. And these are privately held companies where these.
But if it's revenue, isn't a private limited revenue? Isn't that public information?
It's not
anyway?
public information. It's not public information. The information is available with the government. You do GST filings, you do company annual filings, but it's not publicly available information. As in, you can't Google and find out how much the turnover of a startup is, unless the startup wants to. No,
Done that.
no. So startups will publish that data through interviews, etc. They will disclose it on their own, but it's not mandated to share that information, right?
Okay.
Brands going through different cycles of their fundraisers, etc. So that information is very sensitive, right? And plus also, I don't want my competition to know what my ROAS mean. Why should I let them know, right? So brands come from that mindset. So those numbers are never disclosed, right? Now, if I'm not able to disclose my delivery, then the only thing which I have is the badge, right? As in the badge. So in my case, the badge becomes more important. When the badge becomes more important, I'm trying to constantly punch up, right? I'm trying to get badges which I haven't acquired, because then my level changes, then another level changes. It works like that.
Yeah.
If I'm able to somehow acquire a badge which is slightly punching up for me, right? And what I will do is I'll do my best to ensure that I do good delivery, because then I start operating in a different circle of brands, and I'll deploy my best resources. I'll work harder to ensure that the brand gets what they want, right? Now, and hence you should always be a badge that the agency wants to carry, right? If you know what I mean, right? As in,
But there's a pro and con to that.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, there's something that you said that sparked off something else in my head. This, you said that we're going to try harder, right? This was one of the most brilliant campaigns ever done by Avis, right? When Avis said we're number 2, so we try harder.
Yeah.
Massive campaign, ran for a long time, did very, very well.
Yeah.
And because it came from a place of honesty, it's true.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm sitting here thinking, like my agency, right? Let's say a company, for me, getting that company on board will mean that I am going to try harder.
Yes.
Right? Now, the flip side to this is that while I'm going to try harder, it's a decision a company has to take where they think that, okay, do I want to work with someone who tries harder, or do I want to work with someone who's already worked with a brand like mine? It's a pro and con thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do I want to work with someone who's already done, who potentially could get bored of doing this again, or may not come up with fresher ideas, which I could,
Yeah.
right? Which my agency could, versus we will try all the more harder to make sure that this works. The work that we're creating is fucking stunning, right? It's a pro and con thing.
Yeah, but still, again, right? As in, even the agency which is trying to work harder is still punching up, right? Yeah, fair. Those are choices, right? And I think you also take a call on the people, right? As in, you get a sense of whether this business matters to the person or not, and it could matter for different reasons, right? It could just be that the project is exciting, right? Like in our case, all of us get very excited when we are part of the build of the brand, pre-launch, right? Now, from a performance marketing agency standpoint, it's a very shit place to start because you have very limited money, right? But that journey is very exciting for us, right?
Because you're proving a point.
Number one, you're proving a point, but you're also involved in the marketing side of this, right? Like, what should the marketing strategy be?
Correct.
And us having that marketing background, it excites us more, right? So it's also that, right? Now, the counter to that is, one, if you're doing reference checks, right, or with agencies, you should, when you're having a conversation with them, right, talk to them about the bigger brands that they're working with, and talk to them about the smaller brands that they're working with as well. right? If the level of insight, information, and excitement
It's similar.
similar, then you are working with a good team, right? So you are aspirational and motivational for the agency partner, but you also know that hey, the level of delivery is consistent, right? As even for the smaller brands that are classically smaller, where the monetization for the agency might be lesser, they're still doing enough work. Right? So I think that's also a good way to check. So if I had to look at few things, right? And we'll kind of figure out a pattern of both creative, media buying, etc. Right? Like an agency across. So number one, I think specialization is important. Okay. I don't believe in working with a generalist agency, and
That's a great idea for another podcast. Specialist versus generalist.
yeah. So and we will discuss this in detail then.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in doing that. The brand should know what is critical to the brand's growth today. What aspect of marketing will really move the lever, right? Now you can come and say that hey, we want to do everything will move the lever. Now if let's say PR is not strategically very important today for you, don't go with an agency partner who started off as a PR agency and
then got it.
So that's yours. Now if setting up the brand narrative early on, figuring out what to say to whom, go with an agency who has a marketing creative background, right? If they've done marketing, core creative, where they'll be able to bring that to you, right? Because no matter how well executed your media campaigns are, if you're talking shit, which is not vibing with the consumer, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So make that choice first. That's the first thing, right? Number two, be very realistic about how many people are going to work on the account, right? Potentially ask those questions early.
You're not going to get the right answers. No agency ever gives you the right answers. You've been with an agency. I've been with agencies. I know for a fact that when I was with network agencies, what was shown on paper was incredibly bloated for the money that they were charging. Right? So you have to justify the money that an agency is charging, and you say, okay, we're going to take whatever X amount, and for this X amount, you're going to get one ECD, two senior CDs, 3 CDs, and then all of that structure. That's bullshit. So I in fact had this conversation I did a pitch recently, and there was a person who was a fractional CMO, and we put together a crazy pitch. I think it was like objectively, it was a very, very good pitch, right? The reason we didn't get the account was not because of the work. And we had that conversation. The marketing guy and me had the conversation. He said, look, I mean, I pushed for you, right? But the CEO felt that your agency strength right now, I have about 7 people, your agency strength couldn't do what a larger agency would, right? Now, here's what I told him, and this is the same thing what the CMO told us.
Is this a legacy brand or is it a startup? The brand that you pitched for?
It's not. I mean, it's not a legacy brand in that sense. It's an old brand, but they haven't done a lot of work.
Okay, so I'll tell you the answer.
Hold on, let me finish, right? So, and then I spoke to the CMO and I said, look, I completely agree. I said, look, if we go to a larger agency, right? On paper, they're going to say we have 30 people working for this brand.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. You know it's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. And he's been with agencies, I've been with agencies, so he knows it's bullshit, right? What actually happens is that everyone's a shared resource, right? Most people that are on paper working for the brand are not even working on that brand, right? As opposed to smaller agency.
That's an unethical thing, right? So suppose this question is asked to me, I will not tell them the exact resource because honestly I can't, but I will tell them that given my team's bandwidth today, these are the possible people who will work on the account.
You name these people?
Yes, I could if asked, right? And I will be very upfront about that these are all going to be shared resources. Unless there is a requirement specifically from a brand where they want dedicated resourcing, they are all shared resources. And one of the things which I tell brands when I talk to them is that we took a decision very early on that in our line of business, right, especially on the media buying side, typically a media buyer will handle 10 to 15 accounts, and obviously large budget, mid budget, small budget, etc. And then there'll be team lead structure, right? So that's the number that one person is handling is 10 to 15. We from day one believed that that's a problem, right? And we said that no, we'll structure teams where we're going to get a person to handle 4 to 5. We'll charge a premium for it, but that will ensure that at least there is delivery which we are happy with, right? So I state that upfront as well. I also state that this guy will be shared by 4-5 brands, right? 4 or 5 depending on the number, and these are people. What you are talking about, I agree that happens a lot, but that's just unethical, right? As in that's just. And yeah,
just because it is unethical doesn't mean it doesn't happen. That happens. Yeah, of course, right. And what I find strange is that, like, I feel clients know this, but they just don't want to face it.
No, so I'll tell you the real reason, right? The role of the manager.
When you were with GSK,
Yeah.
what on paper, how many people were working on that brand from the agency side?
I don't know. It was a very complicated contract, right? Because so JWT had the mandate for Horlicks and Boost.
Yeah.
Within Horlicks, there were multiple brands.
Yeah.
Right. So each brand had separate teams.
Yeah.
It was a complicated structure. Right. It wasn't that simple. As in, I can't answer that. And procurement used to handle it, so I wouldn't even know the full mandate. Right. But I'll tell you why managers would make that decision. Right. Essentially, you are doing loss aversion. Okay.
You doing?
Loss aversion. If shit hits the fan, right, you are going to go back and say, hey, listen, I chose the big guys. They fucked up. Right? Versus when you take a small guy and then somebody points the finger and says, you went with these jokers.
What did you expect?
What did you expect? How could you take this manager?
You were saving her ass.
Yeah. That's primarily the reason, right? Large part of it is that. Even though you know that there is a smaller, let's say, and that used to happen back in the day, right? We would go back to the team and say that, hey, can we give one project out? Right? But mandates were structured globally.
Correct.
And that option did not exist.
Yeah.
And we could not even do that.
Yeah.
It's not like talent doesn't exist in smaller agencies. At times, I think a lot of good talent exists in smaller independent agencies. But that access is blocked because of number one, global contracts, mandates, and then managers doing what is classically good business decision to do, right? Now, retrospect, if you look at the other way, that's not really the best business decision, but that's the easiest to justify when gone wrong, right? That's largely the case. So, where were we? First point, what did we say? How to choose?
I don't know. I'm not writing shit down.
Yeah, I know. So we said something.
No, but also, I mean, like this whole thing of if and when you should fire agency, I think we reached a consensus saying that, look, if an agency is not going with you, first of all, picking the right agency is key.
Yes.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you pick the right agency, chances are you may not have to fire that agency. So let's table that. Secondly, if you have in that period in time picked the right agency, and you find that the agency, for whatever reason, is not growing at the same momentum that you are growing at, and in spite of various conversations that you've had with the agency, it's just not working, maybe it's time to let the agency go. But also, I think, what we spoke about again was that ego comes into the way, money comes into the way, buying power comes into the way. So you think that even if this agency is working for me, you know what? Fuck you. I can afford like $5 or whatever the fuck, right? And then you just buy and you go out to market to shop.
Yeah,
right. That's what it is, and I think that is quite sucky.
Yeah, but that's life, right?
It's life.
That's life.
It's sucky. So you can bitch about it, but that's life.
Yeah. Now, do you have a model on how to, as in a mental model of whom do you want to work with as clients? And I know that the reality is that at times you just take on work.
Yeah.
Because you need to.
Yeah.
Right. You are responsible for people. And you take on work to grow business.
But if you're asking about me personally, I'm in a very funny state, and I'll explain why. Right? I'm not even sure if we should go into the podcast or not, because this is personal sort of information I'm giving you, right? But we'll see whether we want to put it in the podcast. I really thrive on building brands. I love that process of building something from scratch. Okay? But I'm also somewhat expensive.
Overpriced for
I'm not cheap, like, right? I'm somewhat expensive. Now, the people who really who are building something, right, and they approach me, 99% of the time they can't afford me.
Yeah.
Right? People who can afford me are the people who raised Series A, Series B, those kind of people, right? By which time, more often than not, the building blocks have been laid out. The building blocks have been laid out. Now it's just about
Stepping up.
yeah, getting better at the marketing game, getting better at what you're doing, right? So, do I get satisfaction from that? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But not as much satisfaction as I would have gotten. So, what I now do is that when someone comes to me and says that, hey, listen, I'm a first time founder and I want to build this, I have little to virtually no money. I just say, you know what, fuck it, buy me a bottle of gin and I'll put together something for you. So that's what I end up doing.
Yeah, I know what you mean, right? And we struggle with this a lot as well, right? Because we are also not comparatively priced, right? We are. I think I don't know exact numbers, but I would say that we are slightly on the above than average kind of price bracket for brands, right? And I do a lot of conversations with a lot of early stage founders where I get a sense that today it is not going to turn into business, but that doesn't stop me from that conversation, right? But I'm upfront, right? Hey, listen, this is going to be my pricing, and if not today, few months later we can work, right? When you think you are ready, etc., etc. But see, unfortunately, the problem is this is when they need us the most.
Correct. I absolutely agree.
But
Absolutely
it's
agree.
also, if we were not, or at least in our case, right, if we were not building the way that we are, we wouldn't be who we are, right? If we were also running an agency where one account manager was doing 10, 15, 12 accounts, right, we would also not be able to do what we are able to do. Right? So I know it's tricky, right?
Yeah. In an ideal case, I wish I was incredibly rich so I could just do all of this pro bono.
Interesting work pro bono. Yeah. I agree.
It's not that I haven't, I have, right? But those are few and far apart.
Yeah. So we have also kind of taken choices where we said that, okay, money doesn't matter, let's do this.
Yeah.
We'll figure right where this goes, right? We've done that. We continue to do that. But that's the fun of things, right? As in that, and again, similar kind of mindset where the pre-launch early stage is really exciting. But on the flip side, how do we kind of choose, right? And there's an old LinkedIn post of mine where I said that how do we choose brands that we work with, right? And I think it was like a 10-point list. I don't know how many of them I'll remember, but we said that, hey, listen, you need to be 7 or 8 on 10 for us to kind of work with you, right? Number one is that we should like you as people. I think that's the first and foremost, right? As in, we might not want to, it's okay that if we don't go out and have a drink together, but we should be okay having a coffee together at least, right? We should like you as people. Number two, we should have a clear sense of you know what you are doing and why, right? As in your understanding of why you've decided to get into something or what you are doing.
Well, I mean, let me ask you a question here, right? And I'm asking you because I've also faced many similar situations like this, right? Sometimes early stage founders don't have concrete answers to that. And I feel that it is left to your expertise and my expertise to sort of guide them a little bit in that self-discovery process. Not to answer things for them, but just to sort of guide them in that process, right? Now, if someone has it figured out already, does it make our job easier? For sure. But then this whole thing of mentorship also goes out of the window, right?
No, it doesn't. So I'll qualify what I was saying, right? The thought process has to be robust, right? You should have working thesis. I'm not saying you should have the answers, right? Because brands discover answers, but you should largely have some understanding. I'm talking consumer brands at an early stage, right? Then we'll get into what this means for a slightly grown brand, right? For an early stage brand, you should have 3-4 working theses as to why you think you are going to be able to solve someone's problem, and And problem could be anything, right? You could be a lifestyle brand where you're solving for status, or you could be a very functional brand, right? Whatever problem you're trying to solve for, you should have some working thesis which are logical, and which sit in our heads, right? Where there's some insight, something, some spark, where there is a sense, right? Thirdly, I think category is important. Which category are you entering into? A category which is like 100 crores, and then your aspiration is build a 20 crore brand? Probably not, right? If the category is not exponentially growing, category size matters, right? We like to work with founders who have some sort of marketing backgrounds, right? And that's just to make our lives easy, but at least appreciation of the marketing process, right? And that becomes important.
How many founders have you worked with that have a marketing background?
Quite a few. So it's a lot of people who are late 30s, early 40s, who have worked with companies in roles in marketing, have launched their own brands, right? So there is that crowd as well. Not everybody who is building a consumer brand is 25 years old, right? So there is, and a large part of it is that crowd, by the way. The 25-year-old building a consumer brand, that crowd is lesser, right? Because it requires startup capital, right? Unlike a technology product where you could code an MVP and launch, here you need to buy product, right? So capital, all of that, right? So that makes this true. So sense of category is important. Understanding of what marketing is important. I think openness to experimentation and trying new things. It's hard to gauge, but I think that's it's very critical, right? Knowing what you know and what you don't know. If you have come to me, right, without any functional understanding in what my area of work is, you should ask me the right questions, right? But trust me on my process, right? Now, if you are always second guessing me, then you might as well do it, right?
Yeah,
Then you're not leveraging my capability.
fully agree.
So I think those things are important, and I think there could be a few others also. I think but I think that choice is also important. I think, and you should, as an agency, if you can, have the ability to say no to work. That, hey, listen, this is not right fit for us.
Yeah, that comes usually from being at a privileged state where you have enough money in the bank to be able to say no. I've said no to clients. I've also said yes to clients I didn't want to work with purely because I needed the money.
Yeah.
So both.
It's situational, but largely, if you're always in a cash crunch, then you're doing something wrong. But
absolutely.
But if you're okay, and if this brand is not meaningful to that extent, and if you think that it's not going to be a good fit, you should.
I think we've now somehow done a 360, and now we've come to a point. Well, not 360, 180. Now we've come to a point where we're saying, when should an agency fire a client?
Not fire, and then not on board.
I'm not on board.
Yeah, but that's true, right? As in the relationship has to work both ways, right? See, if you are entering a pitch process, for example, right, then it is on you to do the hard work and ref checks before you even want to participate in the pitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure, for sure.
So your entering a pitch is the signal that, hey, I want to work with you.
Correct.
A lot of times, in our case, it's not a structured pitch process, and we should do a conversation about what is the right way to run a pitch process or not. Right? It can't be, give me my marketing strategy for 3 years for free. That can't be. That is largely the case.
Correct.
Right? Or give me a campaign idea which I can then get somebody else to produce and take your work with some idea. That should not how a pitch process should be run. But if you are pitching, you're showing intent. A lot of times in our case, right, as in it's not a structured pitch, it's just conversation. And it's basically either we are reaching out or brands are reaching out to us, right? Whichever way it is, it's a conversation. So what we usually do is that we would have at least 2, 3, 4 conversations, right? And in case there are red flags, we walk away. We have walked away. Fitment is one. There have also been cases where we've kind of heard very early on with founders where there was some understanding or some expectation of unethical practices
within the client.
Yeah, they said that, oh, why don't you do this?
Okay.
which was slightly black bookish, right? And immediate red flag. Doesn't matter how much money the brand is willing to pay. We walked away from that conversation, and that's also happened, right? So you also see, because I'll tell you what, right? As in this cultural misfit client or brand that you work
And exists in with both ways.
yeah, but that completely disrupts your cycle, right? And then like 50% of the conversations within the agency team is about that particular brand, and it's not productive, by the way, right? If there's not good fitment, right? So you want to avoid that. As in, you want to give the person proportionate time. And it occupies a lot of mental space, right? If relationships are not working out, and there's constant conflict, all of these, it's not that work is not happening, but the mental bandwidth is going in a different direction. So you also want to make those choices. You should.
Okay, we should wrap up.
Yeah, we'll do the pitch. How to run the pitch.
So we had a couple of ideas, pitch and something else.
Very
Which
how to run the pitch.
Which I've forgotten now.
But the next podcast, I have something for you.
Which is?
On the fly, and we'll put a timer and do this. In 30 minutes, we will figure out the launch strategy for a black t-shirt brand. They only make black t-shirts.
This was one of the briefs that I gave to the cohort.
Black t-shirt?
It wasn't black, it was white. A brand that only does white t-shirts. I'll show you the ads that I did for it. There was a launch strategy that I asked them to do.
I'm going to put some caveats to it as well.
Okay.
It's going to be a premium brand. 3,000 rupees for a black t-shirt.
Yeah, as it should be. But only black, nothing else.
Nothing else.
Yeah. But I get it's going to be a very boring podcast because most of that time it's going to be just thought happening internally.
There's
not going to be a lot of conversation.
You have this ability to verbalize while you are thinking as well, right? So I'm hoping that will come out.
I sit in a corner and I think.
But then we can't do this as a podcast.
No, I'll do some thinking before and then
so then
I can pretend that I'm thinking while I'm talking.
Done. We'll do this.
Okay. So good. Thank you very much for watching.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, and next podcast should be up soon. Not sure what it's going to be about or when it's going to be up, but yeah, I guess stay tuned. Okay, thank you very much. Take care.